Blade Runner 2049, a cinematic masterpiece and remake of the 1982 film Blade Runner, was released in 2017. Villeneuve also directed Dune, which was released in 2021 and is a remake of the original Dune film from 1984. One of the things that made Blade Runner 2049 so visually stunning was the use of visual effects and computer-generated imagery, or CGI for short. So stay tuned and don't go away, because today we're discussing what Blade Runner 2049 would really look like without CGI. So, what's so special about Blade Runner 2049? Let's have a look. Back in 2017, Denis Villeneuve did something that many insiders thought would be impossible. He constructed an awe-inspiring sequel to one of the most beloved and cherished cyberpunk sci-fi films of all time. It's extremely difficult to create a sequel to such a beloved film. For the most part, such endeavors end very, very badly, upsetting fans and giving fodder to critics just itching to write their scathing reviews. So, let's look at what made Blade Runner 2049 such a success. Veteran journalist and movie junkie Rick Marshall had this to say when he was asked why Blade Runner 2049 was such a smashing success. A big part of the sequel's success came from its tonal and visual similarities to the original film, as well as its willingness to further explore that world. Set 31 years after the events of Blade Runner, which cast Harrison Ford as former police officer tasked with hunting down bioengineered humanoid replicants, Blade Runner 2049 dives back into that dystopian Los Angeles landscape with Ryan Gosling cast in the role of a policeman charged with retiring rogue replicants. The man behind the visual effects magic of Blade Runner 2049 is Oscar-winning visual effects supervisor John Nelson, who is responsible for the stunning visuals we've seen in films like Gladiator and Iron Man. So, what would Blade Runner 2049 have looked like without CGI? Let's find out. The short answer is, the film would have looked terrible, and it likely would have been a box office bomb as opposed to the smash hit that it was, raking in $260 million in worldwide box office profits. After the release of the film, John Nelson spoke about his experience making the film and said, "Well, it was always a labor of love. It wasn't wasted on anyone that we were doing a sequel to the favorite movie of lots of people. Everybody dearly loved the project. We loved the director, and we certainly loved the original movie, so everybody was really working hard. I'm known in the business as someone who works a lot, and on this one, I probably put in more hours than I've ever done before. I think it was just because everyone wanted it to be all it could be, and I think we did it. Naturally, there are a couple of shots I'd still work on, but I'm pretty happy with it." Based on Nelson's comments, you can tell that at his core, he has the heart of a perfectionist, and more often than not, the most mesmerizing and amazing films in the history of cinema are made by having these kinds of perfectionists at the helm. And CGI was the tool that made it all possible. Stay tuned and don't go away, because we've got more of our behind-the-scenes look at Blade Runner 2049 coming your way. So, how was Villeneuve's vision of Blade Runner 2049 different from Ridley Scott's vision? Let's have a look. When John Nelson was asked about what it was like to work on Blade Runner 2049 with Denis Villeneuve and helping to create Villeneuve's vision for the film, Nelson had this to say: "In our movie, there's not quite so much industry. I'm from Detroit, so I know a lot about dystopian industry, and I asked Denis if he wanted that in the movie, and he said, no, I want it to be more like what I remembered growing up in Montreal. I want it to be really cold and snowy." Denis said he wanted it to be like Montreal in February, so the first step in the process was world and environmental building. This involves a complex process of literally creating a futuristic dystopian city. That's no easy feat, and were it not for CGI, it would have been impossible. When asked specifically about how CGI was used, Nelson said, "We took away all the cars and took away all the trees, and then we designed different scales of that brutalistic architecture: normal scale, large scale, and super scale. As you can see, CGI was a key factor in creating the visually stunning world world of Blade Runner 2049, a physical world that doesn't even remotely resemble ours. Some of the locations were scouted by Nelson and Roger Deakins, the film's director of photography. Nelson and Deakins took several helicopter flights over Mexico City on very cloudy days in order to shoot as much footage as possible. Nelson said, "After all that, the last thing we did was to drop the street, creating new sunken canyons, so not only did we make the top of the city higher, we made the bottom of the city lower. That was just Los Angeles." So, the clever use of CGI helped the filmmakers to transform Mexico City into Los Angeles on screen. Incredible. So, what are some of the other amazing scenes in Blade Runner 2049 that would not have been possible were it not for CGI? Let's have a look. One jaw-dropping scene is the threesome sequence with Ana de Armas, Mackenzie Davis, and Ryan Gosling. The gorgeous Ana de Armas's holographic character, Joy, was superimposed over Davis's human character, Mariette. As things get hot and heavy with Ryan Gosling's character, when asked how the scene was created, Nelson said, "I knew introducing Joy as a hologram and bringing her out into the rain was going to be hard, but the hardest thing with Joy was that scene, what I refer to as the merge. Early on, we tried to define Joy as a hologram. Most of the holograms we saw in movies we didn't like. We tested a bunch of stuff and didn't like it. But finally, we started thinking about volume. If you have a glass or a bottle near you, put it in front of you, because that's a visual example we used. We came up with the idea of the back-facing shell. In order to pull off this difficult scene, multiple cameras had to be used to shoot the women from various angles simultaneously, and the end result is mind-blowing. It doesn't look like CGI. It looks like a genuine performance, like magic." Nelson said, "We then positioned geometry in the computer that was exactly the same as the actresses frame by frame. That way, we could map the front of the actresses on that geometry surface, that glass or bottle, if you want to call it that, and then for the back, we'd create the backwards version of what the camera captured. Because if you look through a glass, the back label appears backwards, so we had to create that." So, would the creation of this visually stunning film have been possible without the use of CGI? Let's take a look. The short answer is no. But let's dive a little deeper and look at specific examples of what the film would look like without the implementation of CGI. If you look at the merge scene that we just discussed, you can see that CGI was responsible for literally creating the movie magic, and this would not have been possible using practical effects. Recently, film industry insiders have talked about the use of so-called digitally created characters that are based on the likeness of actors who have aged well beyond a film's time frame. In other words, making a 60 or 70-year-old actor look 30 again on screen. Villeneuve and Nelson did this successfully with Sean Young's character, Rachel, in order to make her look the way she did during the original Blade Runner from 1982. Nelson had this to say about the process. "I knew early on we needed to do a shoot with a double for the body and then replace from the neck up, including the hair. What we did, though, was to really get deep into it. We were in contact with Sean and scanned her the way she is now, as well as the body double, an actress named Lauren Pita, and we scanned Sean and Lauren, and I did some testing. There were two things we needed to do. We needed to make a CG model that looks real, which is one hard thing to do, but also we had to make it act like Sean in the original movie. The process of creating Rachel alone for a small scene took thousands of hours of CGI work and testing. Finally, at what point in the process did Nelson and Villeneuve know that they had successfully recreated Rachel? Let's have a look. According to Nelson, the point came when Rachel's mannerisms were encoded into a CGI processing computer, which was then used to take 4 scenes from the original Blade Runner film and replace the digital double by using computer modeling based on the mannerisms from the original Rachel back in 1982, and essentially add them to the Rachel from Blade Runner 2049. In order to accomplish their goal of creating a perfect Rachel, Nelson and Villeneuve hired a visual effects studio known as MPC. That's a wrap for today's video, folks. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to our channel, because we've got more cool videos on the way.